Well, good morning, Landmark Church. It's your boy, Pastor Ray, and I'm super excited, y'all, to be with you today. Thank you so much for being with us. Shout out to Pastor Elwood and Betty Jones and the entire team Landmark for this opportunity to speak to you this morning. We're in this incredible series, y'all, called Grow Up. It makes you want to flex your little muscles. Grow up, as we're challenged each week to grow up. So I got a question for you today. Have you ever been in a position, or have you ever shown up in a situation, a circumstance, or even in someone's life, and by you showing up, it didn't directly benefit you, but you saw God still do something incredible in your life as a result of you showing up? Well, today I want to talk to you from the subject, grow up in how you show up, because healthy things grow. So for the last 20 years, guys, I have been blessed to come alongside young people, to come alongside and to show up in the lives of young people as they carry their trauma and their pain, as they carry those ACEs, those adverse childhood experiences, young people that have experienced the death of loved ones through gun violence, young people that have experienced the death of parents and guardians, young people that have been in and out of the juvenile justice system and that revolving door, young people who have simply lost all hope and need someone to tell them that despite what you're going through right now, aging out of the foster care system, despite what you're going through right now as you are a victim of molestation and abuse, despite the things that you experience in your life, that there is hope and there is a God who loves you. And I am deciding to show up in those spaces to let young people know that adults do care, that there are adults who do love them, and that they can live life to their fullest potential. And so I don't know about you. Over 20 years ago, my heart was broken by a tragic situation in my life. And I remember going into my pastor's office at the time. No planning center meeting, no email, no church secretary involved. I bust into his door crying my eyes out because I was devastated and I was broken. And I said to him, I'm tired of seeing my friends die. See, I had lost two of my close friends to gun violence. And he said to me, go do something about it. In other words, he was challenging and encouraging me to show up, man. Show up, Ray. Show up in those spaces. Show up in the community that's broken. Show up in that community that's full of despair. And so I don't know about you. I don't know what your situation is. I don't know what has broken your heart. I don't know what breaks your heart. But I want to encourage you today that God is calling you to show up. God is calling you to show up. And so we've got to grow up in how we show up. Today, you must grow up in how you show up. And so down through the years, man, 20 years, we've been coming alongside young people. We have tried different things, and we've evolved our methods to really engage young people. And so here we are today. 6 months ago, I decided that I was going to show up in a different way. We had some recent encounters with gun violence in our neighborhood during school hours or in the morning as kids were transitioning to school. And so I decided that I was going to show up in a different way. And I said to myself then, God, if they're not going to put their guns down, then I'm not going to put my gun down either. That I'm going to be out on the corner every single morning and I'm going to call it shots fired, because I believe that there's something called peace, hope, inspiration, respect, encouragement, and destiny that can be spoken out of this megaphone every single day to let people know that God sees them, that you see them, God, where they are. And so I decided to show up. I decided that I was going to be unselfish in my ways, because, you know, sometimes people think that you just show up automatically. And there are so many days when I just don't feel like showing up. But when I show up, God always sends someone to not only bless me, but to be a blessing to other people. So here I am, shots fired every morning. And this past week, Thursday, I'm standing out on the corner and I'm encouraging young folks, man, let's go to school today. I saw a homeless woman sleeping right there. So I said, I'm not going to be on the bullhorn, but I'm just going to pray. I'm just going to encourage people, and I'm going to get ready to get out of here. And I just felt God saying, no, stay there, show up and just stay there. And so here I am past my time. And as I turn to the right, I see this man coming down the street, and he's carrying all these bags with him. And this young brother stops in front of me, and he says to me, "Hey, sir, did you used to teach at McFarland Middle School?" And I began to think, man, who is this individual? And as I looked at him, I couldn't hardly fix my eyes on him because his physical condition had changed so much. And then I said, "Brother, tell me your name." "Yes, I did, but tell me your name." And he begins to tell me his name. And immediately I knew that this was a young brother that I had known and had been a part of some of the ministry and the work that we were doing in the schools, because God called us to show up. And so here we are now standing out, and he begins to weep, and he begins to tell me about his pain and his experience of being incarcerated and in prison. And he talked about the prison culture. And as he's talking, he's weeping his eyes out. And I just grab him and I hug him. And as he's crying, he's just crying his eyes out in my arms. And the only thing I can think about is, God, thank you that I didn't be selfish not to show up today. Thank you, because he said, I'm 27 years old and my life is a mistake. And he said, if I had a gun, I would just kill myself right now. And I'm hugging him. And I'm saying to him, no, son, you're 27 years old and you got more time. God is giving you more time. And I said, I don't know if you believe in faith, but I'm praying right now in Jesus' name, because you will live, you will not die. And he begins to cry, and he's crying his eyes out. And I don't know about you, but God calls us to show up in some spaces, and sometimes we are so selfish, we're so stuck on ourselves that we don't show up in spaces because it doesn't benefit us. But I'm telling you, as I show up every morning, I can do a 2-hour show on just how me showing up, God has blessed my life. The words of people, the words from angels with broken wings, the words from angels with dirty faces, in terms of how they have spoken life into me. It's mutual. So when you show up, man, it's mutual. The things that young people have said, and those things that I've been blessed to benefit simply because I'm showing up, it's mutual. It's mutual. So today, as we talk about growing up and how we show up, I want to direct your attention just for a few minutes to a very familiar passage to some of us, and it comes from John chapter number 11. And this is the story of Jesus, who decided to show up. He's perplexed now because he's got to go back to Bethany in Judea, where they tried to persecute him. They tried to kill him. In fact, this is the same Judea that was once ruled by King Herod, the one who tried to kill Jesus when he was born. And so now here he is. He's already made his way back. He showed up, y'all. He showed up in Bethany. And now here he is at the home. He's at the village of Martha and Mary and the dead man Lazarus. And by the way, Lazarus' name means God will help. Come on. And so here Jesus is now approaching Martha. And then Martha drops at his feet, and she says, if you would have been here, my brother would not have died. And then he blesses her. And then now we're picking up in verse 28, where he's now meeting the other sister, Mary. So check this out. Then she left and hurried off to her sister Mary and called her aside from all the mourners. See, the mourners were at the house. And she said, and she whispered to her, the master is here. In other words, Jesus has showed up. The master is here, and he's asking for you. So when Mary heard this, she quickly went off to find him, for Jesus was lingering outside the village at the same spot where Martha met him. Now, when Mary's friends who were comforting her noticed how quickly she ran out of the house, they followed her, assuming she was going to the tomb of her brother to mourn. Verse 32 says, when Mary finally found Jesus outside the village, she fell at his feet in tears and said, Lord, if only you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus looked at Mary and saw her weeping at his feet and all her friends who were with her grieving, he shuddered, which means he trembled. He trembled convulsively with emotion and was deeply moved with tenderness and compassion. He said to them, where did you bury him? Lord, come with us and we'll show you. So now here Jesus shows up and they said, we'll show you. So now I'm going to jump down to verse number 40, and it reads, Jesus looked at her and said, didn't I tell you that if you will believe in me, you will see God unveil his power? So they rolled away the stone. Jesus gazed into heaven and said, Father, thank you that you have heard me, my prayer, for you listen to every word I speak. Now, so that these who stand here with me will believe that you have sent me to the earth as your messenger, I will use the power you have given me. Then with a loud voice, Jesus shouted with authority, Lazarus, come out of the tomb. Then in front of everyone, Lazarus, who had died 4 days earlier, slowly hobbled out. He still had grave clothes tightly wrapped around his hands and feet, covering his face. Jesus said to them, unwrap him and let him loose. So here Jesus is now showing up, convinced his disciples that we need to go back to Judea. And they say, didn't they try to kill you already? They just try to do a drive-by on you, Jesus. And you want to go back to that same location and area? That is not smart. And so Jesus ministers to them and talks about light and day. In other words, what he was saying is, brother, I'm the light of the world. And God is calling us to show up for our brother Lazarus. And in this community, as he shows up, he goes to the tomb and he says, Lazarus, come out. And this is what I love about this, that when Jesus called him out, God used those who had shown up to take off the burial clothes or the grave clothes. God is calling you and us to show up in these spaces, to take the grave clothes off of his people, to let a dying world know that in Jesus Christ we can have life and have it more abundantly. So real quick, before I get out of here, I want to give you a quick takeaway. Here's some takeaways right here. The first one is this ABC, right? ABCs. And so I want you to act. That's the first one. Act upon the Spirit of God speaking to your heart. When we come to Christ, there's something called the Spirit of God that comes alive in us, and we begin to grow in that. We begin to grow up the Spirit of God in us, and so the Spirit of God then becomes what we follow. It becomes what leads us to people. It comes to lead us to a direction in life, and so it feeds us, and it grows in us to such a way where we begin to follow and to listen and to take heed of the Spirit of God in us. Then the B is become. So after I act, then I become a co-laborer with Christ. In other words, becoming a co-laborer means simply to partner with Christ. That our partner, when we were trained years ago, we were always taught that our job was to go into communities and to go find out where God is and join the work. So we just became co-laborers and co-missionaries. We're on the mission field for the Lord, and we're partnering with God and the power of the Spirit of God to do what God has called us to do, to show up. And then the last one is to C, commit. ABC, commit. Commit to developing yourself as an agent of change for God. As you commit to becoming a agent of change. What does that mean? That I become intentional and strategic about what I'm feeding myself. That I have to go to growth track. So here at Landmark Church, we have growth track. We have Tuesday night word breaking prayer. We have Wednesday night 1 year Bible. We have YouTube videos. You can go to our website and you can find YouTube messages. You can download apps like the U version or Street Lights or other apps that will help you develop the Word of God inside of you so that you become stronger in who God is calling you to be. And so as I end today, I want to share this last piece. Years ago, I was sitting at McDonald's and these guys came in with these shirts on that said Tree Expert, and they were beginning to talk about these things called the aspen tree. And the aspen tree, I listened to them, and they said that the roots of an aspen tree, once you plant a aspen tree, the roots of the aspen tree goes and it finds other aspen trees, and they interlock their roots together. And you know that a tree is only strong as its roots. So as it interlocks its roots in one another, it becomes stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger, and it continues to grow and it continues to develop. So I don't know, today, man, as you do life, I want to encourage you to grow up in how you show up, that there will be moments where you have to just put yourself on the shelf and do it selfishly. To do it and not be selfish in who you are, to tap into the Spirit of God in you, to grow, to act, to become, and to commit yourself to God. And so as always here at Landmark Church, we say, go and change the world.